All right.
Hello, I'm Danielle.
I'm Jordan. Hello.
This reminds me of some childhood song, but TV show. Skin-a-rink-a-dink-a-dink. No? Okay.
I know the song, but sure. Hi, welcome to Game of Thrones. Our breakdown of Season 7, Episode 6, Beyond the Wall. How did you feel? What was your overall impression of this one?
You know, this episode was hard because some really cool stuff happened, but there were a lot of things, like we've been talking about all season, that are making stuff less and less believable,
Yeah.
or, you know, these time jumps. So this episode, I think, was the worst as far as the bad stuff that we're seeing this season.
But also some serious game-changing moments, as the second to last episode of Game of Thrones always is. Usually the big episode, Blackwater, Baelor, Battle of the Bastards.
And this doesn't really live up to those in terms of just the quality of the overall episode.
Yes,
but
I agree.
Story points, yes.
Yes, and probably one of the most significant things that's happened on the show to date as far as where the power balance has shifted.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously we're beyond the wall.
We get a brief moment where we see Dragonstone, just like the camera rolls over the war table.
Yeah, but it was going up north.
It was going up north, and there was the fire at the end, kind of foreshadowing that we're going to bring the fire to the north, basically.
Yes. And my favorite thing about this episode, I mean, we'll talk about each one. I like, Game of Thrones, I think, is at its strongest when it pairs two interesting characters together and just kind of has them talk it out and kind of hash things out. And you get that different worldview.
And the dialogue of the show is very,
I think some of the pairings with like Arya, where Arya was with the Hound or where Arya was with Tywin. I think of Brienne and Pod. I think of Tyrion and Bronn.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some of the best moments this show has ever had, and we get so many different cool ones in this episode with this kind of weird band of misfits going on.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So we have our Magnificent Seven, and then some red shirts that are obviously going to die.
And they just randomly appear out of nowhere and be like, "Oh, I'm dead!" And you're like, where have you been this whole time?" Yeah, we'll get there.
So first duo ends up being Jon and Gendry.
Yes.
They're talking about. Well, basically Tormund is with that too, and he's kind of freaking Gendry out a little bit.
Yeah, Tormund is being real weird, and he's like talking about the best ways to stay warm. And he's like, "We use whatever we got," and you're like, "Oh, gross."
Yeah, we have Gendry who's never seen snow before, never been around a wildling, has no idea what a white is. He's just jumped into this head first, and Tormund is just kind of giving him a little bit of what's it called when you
a little hazing? A little bit of hazing.
A little bit of hazing.
And they kind of make fun of him for being kind of like the green one in the group,
right? And then Tormund kind of echoes this idea to Jon of like, maybe you should bend the knee, don't be so prideful.
I love when they talk about Mance Rayder, and he talks about, Mance was a great leader and he inspired so many people, and then Mance died because he was too proud to just bend the knee.
Right.
I thought that was a really interesting moment that did kind of foreshadow where we headed towards the end of the episode.
Right. And I think that idea is such a difficult place to be in. Like, I totally understand this idea of like, if I bend, maybe I'll save people, but do they, will they be saved, or will they fight after that because they just... I do think it's not as simple as they're trying to make it seem.
It's not as simple as people are making it seem, definitely.
But they keep bringing that up, so obviously that foreshadows to later on.
And we also got Jon and Jorah talking in this scene.
In this scene?
I thought that was... Maybe not. Maybe I skipped that. But yeah, it was right away at the beginning.
Okay.
Did you not take notes on it?
Maybe.
Jon talks. He talks.
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah, he talks about
their dads, basically.
J.R. Mormont, who was the former Knight Commander, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, who was betrayed, and he tries to give Longclaw back to Jorah, even though the pommel's been changed. It is the family sword of the Mormont household.
And by the way, I'm gonna talk about that pommel later.
Oh, that thing is so stupid. But he tries to give it to Jorah, and Jorah says, "I was essentially kicked out of my house. I don't deserve it, and he gave it to you. So it's yours now."
Right. I mean, Jorah's whole storyline is basically seeking forgiveness, and becoming an honorable person again. So I think that the fact that he was able to to give it to John, I think is really meaningful for him.
Yes.
So, like, that moment was, like, big for both of them. John doesn't have to feel like he took something from someone else, and Jorah gets to feel like he actually made a decision that was honorable and the right thing for him to do.
And I really like this scene, too, because it does really get to those kind of shades of gray where he talks about, you know, he says to John, speaking of Ned banishing him, he says, you know, your father was right to do that, but it also that doesn't make me not hate him. Like,
right.
He knows that it had to be done, but I still don't like him for it.
Right.
I think that's a really cool element that Game of Thrones does better than a lot of shows, is this idea of you can understand right and wrong and still disagree with it. Even though you know, like, what you're doing is wrong, you can still
be mad about it.
Yeah, be mad if someone catches you and punishes you, which is just like real life. People do that all the time. I think that's what makes the show, part of what makes the show so smart and the writing so good.
And the other conversation that ends up happening is Gendry with the brothers, including the Hound, and they're talking about, like, he's still mad about the, you know, them selling him or whatever, and the Hound's kind of like, you're still alive. Oh, she got you naked? That doesn't sound that bad.
Yeah, I love how he's like, oh no, the Red Witch strapped you to a bed and got naked with you? That's weird.
Yeah. So, and he's like, well, she was going to kill me, and he's like, well, you're still here, though.
Yeah.
Like, more than this guy can say, basically.
Yeah.
So
this guy's died 6 times, and you don't hear him complaining. Yeah, I liked the Hound a lot in this episode.
Yeah, I feel like they're just kind of toughening Gendry up a little bit, and I think that's good for this war to come. He needs to be a little bit...
Yes.
Take things a little bit less personally.
Mm-hmm.
And so that also, to me, means he's probably going to stay around longer
Hope so.
than some.
Yes.
It's all relative.
We jumped to Winterfell, which was really... We only spent time in 2 places, really, in this episode, and it was Winterfell and North of the Wall. We went to Dragonstone for a tiny bit. Yeah, but for the most part, these are the only 2 settings. And we have this scene that starts pretty touching with them talking about their childhood, Arya and Sansa, and Arya tells this story about, you know, father was watching me up here practice archery even though I wasn't supposed to, and then she turns it super sinister when she shows Arya this note she found in Littlefinger's, hidden in Littlefinger's bedroll about, it's the note that Sansa wrote back in season 1 asking Robb to come and bend the knee to Joffrey and how great Joffrey and Cersei are treating her, and the one she's forced to write.
Her mom and Robb immediately, when they read it, didn't think like it was honest. But Arya has never really trusted her sister. She's never really liked her. A lot of people are saying this animosity between them isn't really valid, but it actually does fit a little bit with their past and the fact that they don't know each other anymore, like Sansa mentions.
It is valid, but I do want to come back.
It's a little extreme because you think they'd be a little smarter about Littlefinger.
And part of me really hopes that they are. Part of me hopes that this is some sort of plan they have, or at least that one of them has, that they're trying to trick Littlefinger into thinking that there is more strife between them than there actually is.
But I wouldn't be surprised by Arya wanting to take Sansa down a notch. I don't think she wants to kill her.
She's not going to kill her. No, she's not.
But I think she wants her to know that she could and that she needs to be respected. I think that Arya wants to be seen as valuable. So we go back beyond the wall and we get the Hound and Tormund.
God, this was my favorite one. The Hound and Tormund, where he's like, "Why do you hate wildlings?" He's like, "I don't. I hate gingers." I thought that was hilarious. And then Tormund talks about...
He's like, but you are also kissed by fire.
Yes. And then,
You have sad eyes.
Yes. Tormund talks about his lady back in Winterfell.
And his desire to have great big monster children.
Big monster children with the big woman. And this is also interesting, though, because the Hound does not like Brienne. And now he knows she's back in Winterfell. Mm-hmm. That could, granted she's leaving, but that could cause problems, especially if the Hound is going back south. Because it seems like some of them in the next episode are going down to King's Landing to meet with Cersei.
Except the thing with the Hound is, like, I feel like he doesn't hold grudges or, like, he more is just like, if you cross me right now, I'm going to fuck you up. But,
true. I don't think he particularly dislikes Brienne, but I think he knows her weak points better than a lot of people, I think. And he's good with information like that. So I think that could come back to be a bad thing.
Yeah.
But it could come back to be good. He might turn,
maybe
he might turn out Well, no, tormented Brienne forever.
What about John and Brienne? I mean, not John, Jamie.
No.
That's the other big one that
Yeah.
people ship.
Yeah.
All right, so then we get
What's his name?
Barrack
Very, very nice. The Lightning Lord.
and
Yes.
John, and he mentions like, you don't look like your father at all. You must look
Yeah.
like your mother.
Yeah.
As a little hint to that, because we know in reality he actually doesn't look like his actual father.
No, he doesn't
He
look
looks like Lyanna Stark.
Yeah, he doesn't look like Rhaegar. Yeah.
Which is why in the books they do talk about how he looks a lot like Arya.
Yeah.
Who looks like Lyanna.
Yeah.
So that's
But
interesting.
They discuss resurrection and kind of
Death being the enemy.
Yeah, Barrack basically says, at this point, all we know is that death is the enemy, and that's why we keep getting brought back.
And I feel like this conversation is really helpful for John, who's kind of, he's always been a downer anyway.
Yeah.
But like this idea where he's kind of angry that he was brought back, and
Yeah.
he feels he's more pessimistic than ever.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of is like, hey, maybe you need to save these people. And he's like, yeah, maybe I am the shield
Yeah.
for
Yeah, he
the
quotes
living or
he
something.
quotes the vow of the Night's Watch a couple times in this conversation, but more as I'm here to stop
Right.
the army of the dead rather than I'm here to.
And I
protect
think
the
that
wall.
was helpful for him to feel that sense of honor again and feel
Mhm.
that sense of some purpose and clarity around what he's doing, because I think he felt a little lost for a while and
Yes.
almost had a death wish.
Yes. And then they find the mountain that the Hound was talking
The
about.
Hound finds the mountain.
Yep, in that vision he was talking about. So that's good. This is one of the parts we go on Dragonstone.
We got Dany and Tyrion.
Dany and Tyrion, who've been disagreeing quite a bit lately, and again they do here. Daenerys starts to compare Jon to her past boyfriends.
And
About
says
how she
he's
doesn't
too
like
little for her.
yeah, she doesn't like heroes, and then she compares him immediately to Khal Drogo and Jorah Mormont and Dario.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyrion notices that right away, and then talks about how he's been making googly eyes at her, and I still don't buy their romantic connection at all, but whatever.
Well, we don't see these googly eyes that
Yeah.
they talk about, and that's part of the issue.
I agree, and I think that's part of the general issue with this entire season is that
If we saw it, like I do see I've seen some
Mm-hmm.
looks or things like that from Dany to Jon. I
Yeah.
have not seen anything of of Jon to Dany.
Yeah.
It's all been like him trying to convince her, like very one-track minded, whereas
Yes.
she sometimes looks at him being honorable and kind of, you can see
Yeah.
like a sense of respect or admiration,
Mhm.
but we don't ever see that from him, so
Yeah.
that's weird.
And storytelling 101 is show, don't tell.
Right.
And that's, one of the issues with this season in general is they tell us a lot of things that they just kind of expect us to believe at this point.
And part of that is they're trying to move fast.
Yeah, and that's, I think that's the entirety of it is that, they're trying to move fast, whereas it's almost getting too breakneck at this point.
Yeah.
But we'll talk, let's move
And so
forward.
the
We'll
other thing they
about
talk about is her succession and her death and what's to happen later, and she is having
she
none
takes
of that.
Yeah, she takes that the wrong way, pretty much. Like, Tyrion wants to know what's going to happen when I die, because maybe he's plotting with his siblings. She's still ticked off at Tyrion.
Or even just like, you don't believe in me enough. But the point, he makes very valid points. Like, what, you're going to come in and rule for one lifetime? And he's like, this is going to take multiple lifetimes.
Yes.
If you don't have a plan in place, this is all for nothing.
Yes. But she does not like that. Then we get one of the really fascinating parts of this episode, I thought, when we go back north and you see it out in the snow. Zombie polar bear. Was a really interesting scene.
And it seems very large. I don't know if it's like a...
absurdly large.
Yeah,
Maybe it's
like
like
a
a dire.
dire
Yeah, it might be
polar
like
bear
some
or
sort of
something.
dire bear.
Apparently, I don't know if you watched in the after, they've been trying to write in
Yes, I saw
a
that.
white polar bear for a
Yes.
long time. They finally did
They
it.
finally were able to manage. And this is where we see the Hound again. And once the bear starts on fire, the Hound seizes up. He can't
Right, and
breathe.
I was kind of confused by it, but then when I realized it was because of the fire, it made sense. But
Mhm.
I was just kind of like, what is his deal? But
Yeah.
I forgot that he was...
And I also think this is yet another moment where, the Hound, most of his life has been based in, I see something and I kill it. Like, he's never really believed in gods or magic or anything like that. And so seeing this, I think, even though he's heard talk about it, he's sort of bought into it. He's seen Barrick.
You think he's in shock just of the
this is real now. So I mean, that could maybe be having ramifications on every choice he's ever made, because he's always screw the gods and blah blah blah. Like, he's always been very adamant about that kind of stuff, and this. Now I think his worldview is kind of getting shaken quite a bit, and also the fire.
Right. Well, you think all these people go out, although I guess the Hound and the brothers have all seen the whites in the fire, so maybe it's not as crazy to them, but all these people, some of them are seeing snow for the first time, they're seeing whites for the first time, then they see dragons for the first time, White Walkers for the first time.
Pretty big time.
And they're all just handling it pretty well.
Yes. The bear gets Thoros. They cauterize the wound, but obviously this is...
And he gets up and walks and seems fine for quite some time. Then, fights, runs, and then he dies of the cold. It's a little bit...
Yeah, but Thoros was obviously of the named characters, he's the most expendable of this group. So his death did not really come as much of a surprise.
Correct. That's one of our predictions. In reality, we got out pretty scot-free.
I was, again, kind of like the battle with the dragon in episode 4. I was a little shocked that Thoros was really the only human who went down. Yeah. But also, this scene with the polar bear was kind of, even though we've seen other zombie animals, this was like a reminder, like, it's not just horses. This can happen. Bless you. This can happen to lots of animals. Yeah. We go back to Winterfell.
This is another scene that bothered me. Why is Sansa seeking counsel from
That's
Peter?
why I think it might be a trick. Because Sansa knows Littlefinger. And to me, this seems like a trap.
I hope so, because I hope so, because otherwise it just doesn't make sense.
I agree. I can't imagine Sansa, after one scary incident with Arya, running back to Littlefinger and saying, "I trust you now. What should we do?"
And this was even before the big event between the two of them.
So I still think I think it's a trap that the Stark sisters are laying. I hope so, but I mean, in reality, he has traditionally been the person she's been telling stuff to. She's lied to Brienne. Yeah. She tells stuff to Jon, but he's not here. Sure.
And so maybe it's working in the way that she feels like he's the only person who listens to her. It's
possible.
She knows that he wants her, so he's trustworthy in that way, where she feels like maybe she has power over him.
I feel like Sansa at this point is too experienced in this kind of trickery.
I hope so. It will be disappointing otherwise.
I really think it is some sort of trap for him.
And he makes a comment about Brienne, which later she does stuff with, which also we can talk about then, but didn't make a lot of sense.
Yes.
Speaking of things don't make sense, we go back beyond the wall, and they do catch a...
Before that, we have Jorah and Thoros swapping war stories, which I really liked that scene too, where he's like, that was the cool, I thought you were the bravest man ever, when he charges with the flaming sword. And he's like, I don't even remember doing that.
I just really drunk. Just the drunkest guy yet.
Hammered drunk, and that's why I was able to do that. So I thought
it's kind of that, don't meet your heroes.
Yeah. I sort of like when Bran saw his father's great victory at the Tower of Joy, and he realized it was just because his friend stabbed the dude in the back. Right. He was about to lose. So it is very
None of these honorable people are any less human than the non-honorable people.
It's when it comes down to it, it's you do what you can to survive and get by. But then we do get
we get a lone White Walker with
like a crew of 10 or so.
Kind of like a scouting party, you have to assume. And we learn that if you kill the White, which this is an important story point, if the Walkers die, who were, we assume, raised by that particular White, because one is still there. So part of what doesn't make sense, so he ends up screaming for help or something, or to alert people.
The one that they're trying to capture, yes.
And it's been really varied on how intelligent these creatures are, and in this particular episode, I feel like their intelligence has increased a little bit than what we've seen before. Yeah. But they end up making the plan of Gendry's just going to run the opposite direction of them. This guy who's never been out here.
Who's never been here, and they've presumably been marching for days at this point, I would guess.
At least a day.
At least an entire day. And Gendry runs.
And why do they go opposite directions?
I don't know. No, I don't know.
The logic to there is a little bit
Their whole plan was stupid to begin with.
Oh,
Yeah,
100%.
like, absolutely,
I feel like
yeah.
we talked about that last
Yes.
time, too. And they're like, hey, also, no weapons for you, buddy.
Yeah, you can run faster if I have the hammer that you love. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah, he runs and he somehow finds his way back, which seems outrageous. And then, even though it's skipping ahead a little, he sends a raven all the way to Dragonstone, which is... Westeros is supposedly the size of, like, South America. And Dragonstone and Eastwatch are really far apart.
Right.
And then he sends a raven all the way there, and Daenerys gets it, flies all the way up with her dragons, which presumably fly pretty fast, I guess.
Sure. They're like a jet, basically,
But
or a
even
plane.
still, we're talking several days between when Gendry sends a raven.
Where we see one night happen.
Yes. But yes, that was easily the most frustrating part of this episode. It was like, at some point, that suspension of disbelief becomes ludicrous.
Well, I feel like an issue that's happening in the writing right now is there's like, we want this thing to happen, and then we're writing backwards from that. So like the story isn't naturally progressing. It's kind of, so sometimes we get these jumps in logic.
Yes.
Although it's still entertaining and it's still Game of Thrones, it's still the best show on TV.
Yes.
But we're having to make these jumps as an audience member that we didn't used to make.
And I think, too, there's this idea of this is a world that took itself very seriously in its world building.
Yeah.
And, because you think back to the first season, it takes them, granted they're traveling in a slow-moving caravan, but it takes them entire episodes just to get from one country to the next. You think about, taking boats around, how multiple episodes a character would be on the same boat. And now we have this, like, even Gendry's run. It seems like it takes him, 10 minutes to get back from where they were.
And we were getting some of that at the end of last season with Varys going to Dorne and back and forth.
And I know, it's because they want to get to the meat and potatoes. And
we just have to follow the ride a little bit.
A lot of the complaints of the initial seasons was, God, it's taking so long for everything to happen. So it is. I wish there was kind of a happy medium, but we're a little past that point. But Thoros goes down in this scene when they get to the frozen lake after they camp out there for a while.
Yeah.
How does the frozen lake break? It's been winter north of the Wall for hundreds of years. How is it not frozen solid?
Well, that's some of that backwards writing. The idea is, how do we get these guys to survive?
Yes.
This is the way we get them to survive. And so that's where these jumps in logic are going. Yeah. But really before that, we do go back to Winterfell for a minute, and we see Sansa sending Brienne off. And that's another thing. I don't really know her game right now. Peter had told her, isn't she bound to protect both of you? Does this mean that Sansa is going to try to do something to Arya, and she doesn't want Brienne to protect Arya?
Well, it seemed like Littlefinger's seemed to imply a bit more that Arya is more honor-bound to... Or Brienne is more honor-bound to Arya, because Arya doesn't have anyone to protect her, whereas Sansa has the Knights of the Vale.
Because it makes sense to me that Littlefinger wants Brienne to go away.
Yes, because Brienne does not trust Littlefinger. She probably trusts him less far than she could throw him.
Of course.
She could throw Littlefinger a lot further than most people. But I think Littlefinger's goal in getting her out is obviously she shouldn't trust him. I think his logic is that would be more willing to protect Arya than protect Sansa.
And you think that's why Sansa sent her away?
I'm not sure if that's why Sansa sends her away, or if it's part of this long con where, I'm still listening to you.
It seems weird, because she also seemed, mad at Brienne about, she seemed...
Yeah. But again, that
rude and...
She might be outwitting the Master. She might be, and I really hope that's what she's doing, because that would be so cool if it turned out this was all some elaborate scheme that Sansa had set up, because Littlefinger has spies everywhere, and she knows that. So she knows she has to completely play the game.
Well, I hope so.
But we go back to the lake. Our guys have been there for maybe a day now. We don't know.
Yeah, we've already seen that Dany is going to be headed north.
Yes. Thoros doesn't make it. He freezes to death out on the lake, or his wounds get to him or whatever. And we get this great scene where the Hound is throwing rocks.
Basically.
Yeah, he hits the dude in the face, and then he throws the big rock, and the lake is refrozen, and we get the assault.
So that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, is how intelligent are these creatures, Are they basically being, warped through, where like the consciousness of the white is controlling.
It seems like that to me.
Them.
Like it's kind of a hive mind of the white.
That's what I'm. That's
the
what
walker.
it seems like to me. But yeah, it's not really clear, and I feel like maybe they're not even exactly sure. I feel like maybe they changed it because we used to only see blue eyes on the white, and now like we see them on the walkers sometimes too, or the bear, or we.
Oh, hello.
So that part is confusing to me. What's the difference between the ones with blue eyes versus the ones that aren't? Because we assume those are the ones that get touched versus like raised from the dead, and then what's the difference between their intelligence if they have the blue eyes or not?
Yeah, and where does
hopefully we get more answers into how the White Walkers work and that culture and their purpose and all of that, because it's a big question mark right now.
Yes, and that also raises questions about the whole like if you kill the lieutenant, and it kills the soldiers underneath them.
Does it do it to the white?
Where does that line of succession stop? How far back does it go?
To kill the, it's like vampires. You have to kill the Grand Master.
I'm the Grand Vampire. So yeah, she.
So they're fighting the Whites. The Hound ends up saving Tormund. We get very close to thinking he's going to die.
I thought Tormund was going to die. That they were setting it up very much, and I thought at least one more person was going to go down in this episode, and he did not.
Yeah, but the Hound basically redeems himself for not helping with the polar bear because the fire and stuff like that. So it's a little bit of redemption. They kind of connected earlier.
Yeah, it does show too that for all the Hound's kind of bluster about like, I'm tough and I don't care about anybody. He is and it might also be self-preservation. He sees that Tormund's a good fighter,
right?
And he says, "I'm here helping this guy. We need him."
Right, whereas all the red shirts, it's like, oh, bye, guy.
Yeah.
No one cares.
Like when John pushed the dude off the ledge, did you notice that? It looked, because they were running, and they were kind of like holding onto each other's shoulders, and then John stopped and the other guy didn't, but since his hand was on his shoulder, it looked like he like shoved him off the edge into his, crowd surfing into the zombies. And then we hear the dragons.
Mm-hmm. And why fire didn't get blown on the actual... White. Well,
I know, it's like just hit the Night King. Just hit the Night King. Obviously, she doesn't know. That's the goal here. She's more trying to save these guys.
And we don't know if they can be killed in the same way.
Yes.
With dragon fire.
After all, they do kind of fire parts for them.
At least the Night King.
Yes. And we get this.
So the dragon that dies is
Viserion, which is fitting because Viserys was her antagonistic brother from back in the day, so it's fitting now that with what happens to him at the end that this is going to be a new obstacle she has to overcome once again. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's kind of hilarious that Qyburn is like, I invented this machine, it's this huge arrow that can kill a dragon, and they shoot it, and it hurts it, but then he comes down and he just torches the army, and this guy's just like, oh yeah, I've got this javelin, and
that's magic,
and that was such a it's sad. That was such a cool scene.
Fire.
It like exploded when that thing hit it.
Yeah. So obviously the Whites know about the dragons. They were prepared for them to come. Like
it's almost like they were expecting this.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the interesting theories I've heard about the Lord of Light, which we'll talk about a little bit here.
I like theories. So last time I predicted that Benjen would come.
Yes.
Because we saw...
How many times is John going to get saved at the last minute? Because, once again, why did he get on the dragon? That was so silly. He's sitting there fighting, and they're, like, preparing another spear. And he's like, just go and leave me. And they're like, we're right here. Like, just climb on. But yeah, he gets pulled underwater.
And this is where we see the head of his... What do you think is...
It's just the light... It's like a crystal or something. It's like a little gemstone. And so when his hand slams down, it's just changing the way the light's reflecting off the gemstone. You
think? So basically, you see the head of his Longclaw, and it looks like the eyes on it are white, which normally they're black. When you see it in any other time, they look dark, very dark.
Yes.
And at this point in time, as soon as he hits the ground, they look like they might be blue.
Some people says it looks like his eye. The eyes open or change color when his hand slams.
Yeah, so it goes from white to like either an open eye or maybe a blue eye, like a White Walker eye.
I think it's just the reflection of his glove, personally.
Well, it's the opposite.
Yeah, side. It is.
Well, let's play with it for a second.
Okay.
Does that mean that, anything that has eyes, maybe the Night King can see through? Can he keep an eye on Jon through this?
It's possible.
We don't know how, what went into reforging this. Is there some sort of magic special thing with Longclaw?
I doubt. I think it's just a pommel. Why would you or Mormont make a pommel that's a dire wolf head that the night? Like, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. I get it. I've seen it. It's if that's what you want to look for, yeah, it's definitely believable.
My theory on it is more just that they're adding to this idea that like Jon's opening his eyes. It's another rebirth for him, like because he is the wolf. Like he's opening his eyes to his kind of magic. Yeah. He gets into the ice. He's opening up his ice side.
This could be
his dark dire
his
wolf
baptism
side.
Sort of.
Because we already got his fire death, and now we're basically getting his ice death. So that's how I took it. It's just like another rebirth.
It's possible.
Just a little hint at that, or not at that.
But yeah, we get Benjen. Benjen returns, and Jon's like, "Oh hey," and then he's like, "Here, I'm gonna die. Take my horse."
Yeah, there's no room for you on this horse for some reason.
Nope. So that's
granted, I do think there's some aspect to that Benjen probably is done living. He saved Bran and he saved Jon, and I'm sure he feels a sense of completion and purpose in like he did something meaningful with this kind of purgatory-esque life he's been living. And so he's going to go out swinging a little bit. Yeah. But, it also seems kind of stupid.
It's very rushed again, and it doesn't... Again, my biggest issue isn't just the rushing aspect, it's that because of the rushing, these scenes don't get the emotional impact I feel like they deserve.
Yes.
Whereas, Jon, he joined the Night's Watch because of Benjen. Yeah. And the main reason he wanted to become a ranger and go north of the Wall was to find Benjen. And then finally Benjen's like, here I am.
Go away.
Bye. Like, it's very, like, that should have been a revelatory moment, essentially.
And logic-wise, like, the chances of Jon surviving the ride back are slim. So him having somebody to actually ride the horse makes a lot more sense. And we see that. He was passed out. The horse just magically made it back to the wall.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah. So we find out the Hound is the one who's going to be going south.
But one thing I was going to ask about Benjen is, can he even die? Did he die then? Because he's already dead.
That's true.
So
I don't know.
He's this weird he's basically like the Night King. He has a piece of dragon left in him. So who knows if he's really dead, but although in the behind the scenes they basically said he died, but that also doesn't make sense to me.
I doubt we'll ever see him again. Whether or not he's dead, I doubt we'll see him again. We do find out the Hound is going south, which hopefully sets up a nice little Clegane Bowl. That's one they do mention. And then we get Dany and the dragons being all sad.
Waiting for Jon.
And then sure enough, Jon comes riding up, and they bring him back, and he shows off his abs, and that's what makes Dany fall in love with him.
It's really creepy to see his wounds never healed.
Yeah.
They're just open wounds, so it's
Unless
like
they're
almost like those were his.
Those were the stab. Yeah. Okay.
So the idea being like he died like that, so they're there. Mm-hmm. They didn't heal, so I don't know. They're not going to explain that, but it almost looked like he was like breathing out of them. Yeah. Like they kind of it was a little creepy.
You get the what I think was the creepiest scene in the whole episode was the scene where Arya challenges Sansa to the lying game, the face game that she used to play after Sansa finds Arya's faces.
I think there's this sense of like you think you're powerful, but you don't even know. And
Arya's little theory about, or not theory, but when she kind of muses, like, I could just take your face. Like, I wonder what that would be like. Like, it's very... Arya was scary in this episode. Like, she's always been, since she's gotten this faceless man train, she's always been a frightening character, but she was, like, unsettling in this episode.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of like how she was when she ran into Pot Pie. Like, very dark, and that's...
Hot Pie.
Hot pie.
Not hot pie.
Hot pie. And I think it's her family that grounds her. And unfortunately, Sansa is not part of her family that grounds her.
Yes.
She's part of her family that triggers her.
Yes.
So And Bran, although he helps kind of ground her a little bit, and when she's with Sansa talking about her dad, that does. But like, I think when Jon gets back, I think that is what will actually help Arya.
I hope so. Yeah.
Be humanized a little bit more. She will trust what Jon says about Sansa. If like, she's never trusted Sansa, and Bran is a little bit out of there. So out there. So she. And she doesn't have the people that used to live there. Like, there's this. She's still struggling.
Yeah, it's not her right now. Winterfell is not her Winterfell.
Yeah, so
it's
I think
very
she's
much
reacting
Sansa's Winterfell right now.
In fear, I think she's feeling fearful and she's wanting to exert.
But once again, Cat's Paw Dagger changes hands.
Yeah, why does she give it to her? I think she's implying you need to kill Littlefinger to prove yourself.
I kind of think so too, but I'm also kind of thinking. Again, if this is some sort of scam, that their argument was sort of a cover-up for Arya giving Sansa the dagger, because she clearly knows that Littlefinger knows she has the dagger.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if there's some sort of plan in play with that, but now that Sansa has it, I do think Sansa's at least going to try. I don't know if she'll succeed to kill Littlefinger. Is there someone at the door?
I don't know. Might have been the mail.
Oh, yeah, probably the mail.
So that will be interesting to see what happens with that, because, first of all, if you just want Littlefinger dead, Arya should do it. Like,
yeah.
That is logical. Like, she would have the best chance of doing it without getting hurt. So I do think there's a sense of you need to prove yourself.
Yes.
And your loyalty.
Which is a very mob boss thing to do.
Which, is fitting for Arya.
So we get to the end here, or I guess we do get Jon and Daenerys' little scene where they're on the boat and Jon is showing off his abs. And he's, I want to bend the knee, but in the shape I'm in. It's very like, come on.
He calls her my queen, he calls her Dany.
He calls her Dany, and she's like, oh, my brother used to do that, which was like creepy incest bells were going off in my head with this going on. I don't know. Again,
it's the most genuine of Jon showing admiration to her, I think.
Yes.
I don't think I saw that before, but I think he saw the way that she came, the way that she was emotional about and cared about the people. Like, that's the kind of thing that wins Jon over, not how she had been acting of like, bend the knee. Like, I don't think he's attracted to that.
There's definitely some stuff here too with like, Jon, the first thing he says when he wakes up, he apologizes. And it's about the dragon. It's not, sorry this, sorry that. It's, I'm sorry about what happened to you. Like, It's very much, this is the first scene I feel like, I still don't really buy it, because we haven't seen enough of it, this kind of
But
courtship.
It's the first time you see him.
The first time it's believable.
Yeah,
that these are two kind of equals who are starting to say, maybe this one's not so bad after all. Maybe I kind of misread the situation,
If nothing else, there's very believable respect between the two of them. They have similar values and similar approaches. They both are willing to risk their lives for the people they care about, and in this world, not a lot of people are. Yeah. So there's obviously a connection with that, if nothing else.
Yes.
And this shared moment of like, basically, that. If you've been through a traumatic experience with somebody, the likelihood that you get attracted to, like, we just know that from psychology. So I think there's part of that happening of like, you almost died, that freaked me out. You lost, your child, that freaked me out. We had this big bad, we thought we were going to die. Like, now we have this shared experience and shared connection. So that part of it is believable to me.
I agree. And then we get the last shot, which is the game changer, which you kind of had to see it coming once the dragon...
Well, there's been theories forever that there might be an ice dragon
underneath
the wall,
or
something like that.
But we now see that it doesn't matter if there's an ice dragon underneath the wall, because now there's a blue-eyed dragon who they pulled out of the river. And is presumably under the Night King's control at this point.
Right, and we have to assume that it won't shoot fire anymore, though.
You would guess. You would guess that.
It has to shoot some ice.
Some sort of, like ice frost breath or something like that. Yeah, like D&D frost beam dragon.
Right. Speaking of fights.
Yes, you get her. But yeah, so this is, I personally think this is like the biggest game changer we've seen on the show as far as balance of power goes. The Army of the Dead was already probably the most formidable force, and especially now that they've got a dragon on their side, and presumably the means to make the other two into their soldiers as well.
Right, it was
or
pretty
whatever
easy
they
for
want.
them to kill the dragon.
Yeah.
One hit.
Worst case scenario, they'd kill the other dragon, or worst case scenario for them, they would kill the other dragons and not be able to turn them south of the wall, but they can still, it looks like, kill them pretty easily with their ice spears.
So I think that gives some viability to the theory that, like, why are they marching on the wall now, right? That's one of the ideas. And part of it was that, we know there had been this pact in the past. And so part of it might be that, like, this balance of power. When dragons came back into the world,
it woke them up to, even if they were still around, it militarized them.
Right, and made them want to move further. Because, we know they've been there for a while. They've been getting Craster's kids. Like, they were their own culture and people. Why have they been back there just living their lives for this long?
Although
I don't think it's to just build their army.
You could also make the argument, though, that it was the White Walkers' return that brought the dragons back. Because you could go the opposite route there. That they were starting to militarize, and that's why the dragons were able to return. That's why those eggs were able to hatch.
You could, but that seems more luck-based, that, like, the right person got the eggs and yada yada. Whereas the whites are intelligent enough that they saw that. Yeah, I want to hear about your theory.
Well, I read today an interesting article about, I think it was in Forbes or something like that, but it was about how maybe the Lord of Light, we've always kind of posited the Lord of Light is the good guy god, who's on the opposite side of...
I mean, to me, it doesn't seem very good, but sure.
But it's always kind of... He's
against the White Walkers, so therefore good by default.
The good guys, some of them tend to follow the Lord of Light, and they're against the White Walkers, who are the evil ones.
To me, the old gods are the only ones that seem...
The theory that I was reading today is that the Lord of Light is just a god who wants death and destruction. He's just fire personified. And so the reason he brings people like John and Beric back is so that they can march up north and do something stupid, and then the Night King can get a dragon. Or he's putting people in positions to set up more war, because all of the decisions, all of Melisandre's mistakes that she's made have caused death and destruction. All the times that people have killed in the Red God's name have been death and suffering and things like that. So the theory I read today was that he's just... The Lord of Light is literally just fire, like consuming.
Yeah. I mean, I am a believer in the idea that there isn't really a Lord of Light. Like, there is magic.
Yes.
And people are explaining magic through a religion. And so, they can see these things happening, or they could be brought back to life. And I don't think it's because anyone is particularly special.
Yeah.
I think it's more that, like, special in the way of through a god, that, like, maybe they have special blood or special, we know that different races have different, like, magical characteristics. So I am more of a believer that it's actually just magic, and it's kind of like the weirwood trees and the children of the forest. We know all of this magic surrounds, and it's just tapping into it. So certain people have learned how to tap into the magic, and they're interpreting it in a way that we historically have liked to explain things, which is through a being, an all-powerful being.
Things we don't understand.
That gives us purpose.
Yeah, things we don't understand, we tend to put, it must be because a god wanted it to happen.
Right, and I think that's
history.
That's where people are messing up, is because then they think that there's this bigger purpose or
the Lord of Light's will. Yeah,
right.
They say that phrase a lot, that he willed this to happen because of some greater purpose. And whether he's actually making these decisions, whether he's actually destructive, there's a lot of different ways you can interpret it, but they're all interpreting it the same way that is probably wrong.
Right.
If we know anything from Game of Thrones, it's that misleading the audience is kind of what it's good at.
Right.
And
because in reality, we see magic in non-religious ways too. We have Maggie the Frog, who gives Cersei predictions about her future. We have Qyburn doing like this science magic, necromancy.
We had blood magic from the early episodes, and Maggie the Frog was blood magic. She sucked some of her blood. That's how she was able to.
Right, and that's how they light their they make the swords flame by putting their blood on it.
So there is all sorts of different types of magic that don't quite seem to fit in the ways that they're trying to make them fit as characters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're trying to explain things they don't understand. And then, we have the Children of the Forest, and, there's all sorts of stuff going on.
Yeah, so, especially now that we know that, like, the Night King isn't a god himself. He was made by the Children of the Forest. He was made from magic, he's not his own religion, like, because I think that was an idea of, like, this is one religion versus another. Well, he's just a guy who got turned into a monster, basically.
Yeah.
And I think we'll get more explanations like that, is my prediction.
I agree. All right, next week, we're getting the big meeting, it looks like.
Yeah, do we know the name of the episode yet?
I have not seen it.
Yeah, they haven't been releasing them really ahead of time. So we see the Unsullied, we see the Dothraki, we see everything marching on King's Landing.
Were the Unsullied marching on King's Landing? Okay, so somehow they get them out of there.
So we see basically this surrounding. I think it's to say, hey, if you're trying to trap us or whatever, we're going to attack.
We will torch the city to the ground.
And so we have Jon, Tyrion.
The Hound is going as well.
Mm-hmm.
Brienne is going.
But I mean, in the preview, we see Jon, Tyrion, Cersei in the dragon pit. We don't see Dany, so we have to assume that she's going to make some grand entrance.
Yes.
On a dragon, which might be the trap of, like, they fire all of the things at them and just try to kill the dragon.
I don't think Cersei is dumb enough to do that at this point. I think she realizes that she's screwed, even if Daenerys only has one dragon, which she wouldn't know.
And the fact that Cersei is there.
Yeah.
Because Cersei usually avoids when stuff is going to happen, like you think of the Red Keep
scepter,
So that's going to be the big...
Yeah, that seems like the big event.
So do you think we're not going to get a battle then? As the end of the season?
I think we are. I mean, if we're going to talk about who we think is going to die, if the Unsullied are getting out of there, I think Euron might be in trouble. Because I think Euron is still blockading them, essentially. I don't know, but I think they showed the Greyjoy ships in the bay still, in the preview. So Euron might be in trouble.
Well, the other thing that we do see is somebody falling, like, out of a boat onto their knees or next to a boat, and it looks like Theon.
Yes.
And so, it looks kind of like King's Landing. It doesn't look like winter or anything. Yep. So does he see something happen to Yara?
Possibly.
It looks like he's very distraught.
Yeah, but that's
although
just
he could just be falling. So so he definitely could be in trouble if he did something to Yara.
Yes.
Like strapped her to the front of his boat or something.
Yeah, he could be in trouble, especially if he decided to kill Yara. I think one of our big players might be in trouble. I don't have a guess to who. It seems like having them all get together in the same place is a recipe for disaster. Mm-hmm. Like, someone's going to say or do something that's going to cause someone to get killed.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be like Jon or Cersei. I mean, it could maybe be Cersei. I could see her going down in this episode if she tries something stupid. Mm-hmm. But I would think maybe a semi-big character. I could see someone like a Varys or a Yara, a Jaime. Probably not Jaime, but again, I could see that.
I don't
happening.
know. I'm not as excited about this episode as I would want to be the last episode of the season. So I'm curious to see what actually is going to happen because
they didn't hint at much.
Right.
Yeah.
So we know that basically they're going to bring this white here, but to me this whole plan didn't seem very logical to begin with. No. This idea of, like, let's get Cersei on our side,
especially because Cersei already has a zombie. It's like she knows it's a real thing.
Right.
So
So
I don't know.
That's where I'm curious is where are they really going to go with that, because to me that idea isn't that fruitful.
Yes. And I'm excited though to see this. I hope the resolution in Winterfell. I want to see if this is a plot, if Bran has somehow communicated with his sisters who and what Littlefinger has done, and this is some big ploy to make him think he's...
Yeah, hopefully we get some closure on that regardless.
Yes. I think they're trying to make him think that he's in charge when in reality they're pulling all the strings.
So what are your hopes for this last episode? What kind of storylines need to be tied up? What kind of cliffhangers do you think are going to happen?
The Winterfell thing, we need to figure out exactly what kind of alliance is being struck between Dragonstone and King's Landing and the North and even like the Iron Islands. I mean, all these different kingdoms are kind of in limbo right now, and we need to kind of, I think, solidify who's on whose side going into the last few episodes where we're going to have to deal with a zombie dragon.
I think we're going to see Viserion flying.
I think so too.
And maybe even see if it's doing fire, if it's shooting ice.
The Night King flying in on... He might take out Eastwatch.
He might fly over the wall and then...
No, and that breaks it. Because they don't have to go through it. I don't know. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it.
My biggest hope is that we get a Bran flashback.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We haven't gotten anything.
We haven't seen Bran forever.
And we haven't gotten any flashbacks to know anything about anything. And so, like, I want to...
Yeah.
I'd like to know something about Rhaegar. Yeah. Or Children of the Forest, or something that's not just warging through the ravens to see that they're coming. I want some more answers.
I agree.
And
they're running out of time to give viable answers, and so I think they need to get some out of the way now, so that the last season, because there's only 6 episodes in the last season, and I do not want them all to feel like this episode. You know, this episode was good. There were great parts to it. I don't want the whole last season to be like, you don't have time to think about it. You don't have time to be emotional. Because a lot of people are going to die in the last season, and I want to care about it.
Yes. And I don't want them to just jump over really cool facts and storylines. I want it to make sense for me to move from one thing to the other.
Agree.
So, that's my hopes. My death prediction is Yara.
Yeah, I can see
Littlefinger.
I can see Yara. I can see Littlefinger both. I think one of the main people in that dragon pit is going down. Theon might go down too, especially if Yara's dead. I think Theon might go down. But yeah, and I think one of those, that merry band might go down too, like Tormund or Beric. Now that Beric doesn't have someone to bring him back to life. I think a decent amount of people are going to die in this episode.
I thought that last time, so I actually don't think that this time.
I think they are, because I think they need to start whittling down the power players.
I think if they made it through the last episode, I think that the group that made it through the last episode, I think will be okay through this episode.
Okay. Well,
I think it will be someone. I think it'll be other people. But who knows? We've been saying Baelish for a long time.
And he just keeps on keeping on, doesn't he?
So, hopefully next episode lives up to a season finale.
Hopefully. Especially after the great one we had last season.
Yeah. So we'll see you then. Talk about it.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Make sure you comment below what you thought about the episode and click on all of our...
subscribe and check out our links below.
Yeah.
We've got our social media and stuff on there.
And other channels.
Yeah. So check it out, and thanks for watching.
Bye, buddies. Bye-bye.